Notice how in this case, it's exact, just looking through the camera. So then chaos theory is defined as effectively unpredictable, long-time behavior arising in a deterministic, dynamical system because of sensitivity to initial conditions. So then chaos tries to explain design by dealing with it as determined outcomes of specific initial conditions which are established by chance. In applying this to biogenesis then, chaos theory teaches that the initial conditions of the Big Bang were such that biogenesis was completely determined or unavoidable, even forced. But there are many critical problems in applying chaos theory to biogenesis or to life. The first is just one of esoteric or mysterious, impossible knowledge. Proponents of chaos theory believe that the initial conditions of the Big Bang were significantly influential to have subsequently progressively fine-tuned the Big Bang in such a way so as to produce a galaxy and a solar system with a life-supporting planet, to then populate that planet with optically purified amino acid isomers, and then to structure and organize these isomers in order to form information, which is then compiled in blueprints as DNA to form life. The application of chaos theory adds nothing in the way of producing a mechanism of explanation to the assembling of genetic information on Earth. It's simply a theory of faith in nature, fueled by the need to produce a theory of biogenesis based in naturalism. It's necessary to question why chaos theory should be accepted on the basis of such faith when design theory has been established on the basis of the evidence. Second, chaos theory doesn't solve our problem of probability. Again, if we have just one universe, for we now know or are confident that our universe will not recollapse, this is one shot, one universe. Again, what is the probability that all these highly unstable initial conditions of the Big Bang would come together in such a way that they would subsequently force life to occur? They are so impossible that most physicists and scientists also regard these as unreal and have new theories to explain them. For instance, Stanford physicist Andre Lin has developed the chaotic inflationary model. He believes that the first universe caused quantum fluctuations in other fractals, and so it branched out like a family tree and caused more universes. And each of those Big Bangs, as they began, caused other fractal universes into this ad infinitum exponential equation of family trees of universes. So that he would argue that there are incountable, infinite amounts of universes, and we're just one of these. And out of all these infinite universes, then only one needed to have the right initial conditions for life. So then he's trying to explain away the problem of probability. But again, there's no proof. This is all hypothetical conjecture, first. And secondly, in a conference named Science and the Spiritual Quest, Andre Lin himself confessed that his theory doesn't solve the problem of the first Big Bang. Where did the first universe come from? And he said this doesn't solve the problem of creation, only pushes it back to infinite past where we can no longer study it. In this final section of the appendix, we'll be discussing how theory and information is used to apply meaning to evidence. Evidence by itself is simply artifact. It carries no weight. It tells no story. It lends no support for either one theory or the other. Theory and information are applied to evidence to allow it to tell a story. Let me illustrate. This candle as a piece of evidence tells us no story. Now let's apply information to the candle. For example, the information that I obtained the candle from a photographer's studio. Now the candle begins to paint a picture. It tells a story of being lit and used in photographer shoots. Maybe it could be seen hanging in a portrait on someone's wall, or possibly it's been featured on a magazine cover. Now let's see what happens as I apply theory to the candle, and notice how the theory paints broad sweeps of information, not just about the evidence itself, but also about the things related to the evidence. For example, the theory that candles are not found on this continent at all naturally. Now this tells us one of two things. Either I traveled around the world to obtain this candle, or this candle was packaged and shipped to me from around the world. Either way, the theory dictates broad sweeps of information, not only about the evidence, but also about those things related to the evidence. Now let's apply this to the fossil record and see how it pans out. The oldest hominid fossil ever found has been dated by evolutionists at 4.5 million years old. Detailed multivariate computer analysis was done on the fossil to give us some insight, to provide information, to allow the fossil to tell us a story about its origins and what it is. The results from the computer analysis were published in Science magazine and pronounced the 4.5 million year old fossil as strikingly close to modern humans. Further analysis was done by Henry McHenry of UC Davis. He also published his results in Science magazine, and he pronounced that the fossil was indistinguishable from modern Homo sapiens. Despite all this evidence, modern science textbooks and science journals all attribute this bone to a pre-human ancestor. Why? Oxford University's Dr. Howell gives us some insight. He writes, "The humeral fragment from Canopoi, with a date of about 4.4 million, could not be distinguished from Homo sapiens morphologically or by modern multivariate analysis by Patterson and myself. We suggested that it might represent Australopithecus because at that time allocation to Homo seemed preposterous, although it would be the correct one without the time element." Notice what has happened here. The fossil presents serious challenges to evolutionary theory as we know it. However, instead of utilizing this new information to adapt and revise theories, the fossil is interpreted based upon the teachings of the theory, namely that modern humans or modern hominid forms did not and could not have existed at the time that this fossil is allocated to. Therefore, it's attributed to a pre-human ancestor according to evolutionary theory. And then this new interpretation of the fossil is used as supporting evidence for evolutionary theory. This is circular reasoning, a type of science which, rather than adapting its theories to the evidence, rather readapts the evidence to the theory. Sadly, this interpretational wizardry isn't applied just to this one isolated fossil, but across the board to any fossil which presents serious challenges to evolutionary theory. Take again, for example, the footprints found in Tanzania by associates of Mary Leakey. Here were 70 yards of footprints in hardened volcanic ash. The layers above the prints were dated at 3.6 million years old. The layers below the prints were dated at 3.8 million years old. The only problem is that the two lines of footprints were clearly those of modern humans. In a National Geographic article, Mary Leakey described the footprints as remarkably similar to modern man. Specialist Russell Tuttle was called in from the University of Chicago to perform discrete analysis on the footprints. In order to do this, Russell made plaster casts of footprints of habitually unshod or barefoot Peruvian Indians, and then he compared these plaster casts with those found and made in Tanzania. He writes, "In discernible features, the prints are indistinguishable from those of habitually barefoot Homo sapiens. Ape feet and human feet are distinguished by both physical structure and weight transmission differences when walking. Apes transfer their weight along the outside edge of their foot. Modern humans and fully upright species transfer their weight from the outside of the foot along the ball of the foot to the inside of the foot. The Laetoli footprints exactly match modern humans in both characteristics." And yet, even Tuttle attributes them to a pre-human ancestor. He also explains why in print. He writes, "If the footprints were not known to be so old, we would readily conclude that they were made by a member of our genus,